So on this demo, we are going to go through sales pipeline configuration, setup, the concept, what the intention is behind sales pipeline, how to use it, how to think about it, why it's different than your client list or your prospect list. We'll touch on activity and how to attach stuff to opportunities, and maybe if we have time or there's some questions, we can even talk about workflow automations. Okay, so we will start in the settings, and there's really two things that you're going to want to set up before you start using the sales pipeline. The first is going to be in your custom fields. Everybody has different stuff they track for their sales pipeline. So we've kind of got the bare bones. We've got a name, we've got a description, estimated close date, estimated value. But outside of that, the intention is to come in here, whatever makes sense for you to track, add your custom field, set it up, drop downs, select boxes, check boxes, whatever you need. Just get all that data in there, everything that you need to know about an opportunity when you're trying to understand the stage it's in and what type of work you need to do, and all that good stuff. So after your custom fields are all set up, then you're going to want to go into the settings tab. And here is where you actually think about the stages of your particular sales cycle. So we put in some default that are super generic, but everybody's got different stages, right? Sometimes, you actually go on site, or there's like a project asset that you have to deliver midway through. So you really just need to map out all of the steps that you go through logically, from getting introduced to somebody to closing the deal, which is kind of the middle step, to actually completing and then delivering the work product. If it's a one-time delivery, that's a little more clear cut. If it's, a retainer type of business, then, your opportunities will kind of stop at close, and then you'll go into your ongoing project management. So you set these all up. We've got some stage types here that help inform the forecasting. So these are just any new stage you add, you'll want to choose kind of what that means to the system. So new is it's brand new, just came in, you haven't worked on it. In progress is you're actively working on it. On hold, something went sideways, you're going to put it to the side for a while. Closed won means you got a signed contract. Closed lost means you didn't get a signed contract. Either you decided it wasn't a good fit or they didn't sign the deal. Complete is after you've delivered the whatever you agreed to perform for the client. So that'll stop the forecast from predicting income if you have recurring income there. So really, these are just stages, internal stages that are used to drive the little chart in the forecast. So they're not super important if you're not going to use the forecast, but it is good to have them roughly aligned with what's going on at that stage. So we'll take a look now at the actual pipeline. There's two different views. You've got your table view, and then we've got a card view here that you can scroll across. At the top of each will show you the dollar amount and the count of opportunities in that stage. And in the table view, you kind of get a little summary up top to see that same info. So that will get updated based on your estimated value, and the estimated close will also drive some of that forecasting functionality. Okay, so now you can see we've got, let's actually put this back in an earlier stage. So you can see we've got about $5,000 of pipeline sitting in inquiry. We've closed $300. And then once these are complete, they'll kind of go off of the closed one and off of the forecast. So So since I've been talking about forecasts, we can just jump in there before we dive into the opportunity details. So this will just show you, based on what you've put in, how much money you think you're going to make at any point in time in the year. So if you come back here and you've got, I think this is going to close in November and I'll get $5,000. And then this one is another $5,000, but I don't think I'm going to close it until December. Now you can go back to your forecast and you can see that based on what you've put in your pipeline, you can kind of guess how much income you're going to potentially close over those next quarters or year. So it's really just to help you kind of visualize the work that you're bidding on right now, or you're working on, to see, if your target is to bring in $5,000 in new business every month, and you look out at January and you have nothing, knowing that it's October now, you probably need to get to work. Unless you have a real short sales cycle, you need to start doing some business development. And so, this is purely just to help you get a gauge for when you need to go focus on business development and when you need to focus on actually executing on your projects. So that's the forecast. You can filter by different stages. You can filter by confidence. So a lot of this has been taken from kind of a more enterprise sales pipeline approach. So in your opportunities, you could say, I just had a real bad call with this client, not feeling great about this opportunity right now. This one I'm feeling really good about. And then when you go back to your forecast, you could be like, all right, let's just see, I just want to see all the opportunities that I'm at least feeling pretty good about closing. And you can see then your forecast takes out that one that you're not feeling great about. And so, as you kind of work through the sales process, you can keep updating those confidence levels, and then you can use this to not just see everything in your pipeline, but really filter it by stage or by confidence level, to get a sense for how confident you are that you're going to make that money in the period that you're forecasting. Okay, so let's go actually look at what is in an opportunity. And maybe we should talk about how opportunities get created first. So there's 4 ways that opportunities get created in the system. You either click this button and you just add a new one. That's kind of the easiest. You could have a form, and in your forms, there is a setting in here, add submission to pipeline. And when somebody fills out this form, if you've specified that you would like to add this submission to the pipeline, you choose the stage that you want it to get entered into. Somebody fills out the form, hits submit, that goes into the CRM, and it'll automatically create an opportunity in whatever stage you selected there, and it'll copy all of this data that you captured in your form into the lead info in the opportunity. Meeting schedulers have the same exact feature. On the, where is it in this one? So on the overview, same thing, add meeting to pipeline, phrased slightly differently, but at the end of the day, you're going to capture name, email address, phone number, and all that information can automatically create an opportunity in the pipeline. And then the meeting or the form submission will get linked in the activity section of the pipeline opportunity as well. So those are 3 ways. The 4th way is through integrations. So Zapier, Make, Pabbly, our direct API. So we have a lot of people who have their own lead form. Maybe they're using Typeform or Jotform or something on their website, or WordPress has a bunch of native form features. If you want to capture form data elsewhere and create opportunities in the pipeline, you can do that using Zapier, Make, Pabbly. We've got a bunch of people who have Facebook leads hooked up to our sales pipeline. So when people are clicking on their meta ads and giving them their info, they can actually generate opportunities right in the sales pipeline. So those are the 4 ways that opportunities get created. So let's go take a look at what makes up an opportunity. So in the overview here, you've got all your up to the estimated close date here. These are our standard fields. And then these here are all those custom fields that I added. So you can add whatever you need, extend it, make sure it makes sense for what you need to track. You've got a description, it's a rich text editor. You can add as much content as you want there. You can paste videos in, all that good stuff. The to-dos are important. They have dates on them. And these dates and the to-do will actually show up on your dashboard focus as work that you need to do. So they'll have the little pipeline icon here, and you'll see the actual opportunity name, the to-do, when it's due, and the stage that it's in. And if you click on this, you can pull up the actual opportunity. So the to-dos in opportunities are powerful if you want to track next steps. You want to make sure you're not forgetting to follow up. All of it will get surfaced right out to your focus page, so long as you set a due date. And then as soon as you check them, they disappear off your focus page because the system knows that you've completed it. Notes, this is just a place to add call notes, as you're working on the opportunity, status updates, whatever you need to track for yourself. You could do one big note, you could do a new note every time you talk to the lead, personal preference, but you can add as many notes as you want here. Attachments, similar. If you've got files that you're collecting, assets, comps, whatever type of files you might collect. If your form or meeting scheduler collects some files up front, they'll automatically show up in this tab. So if you have a form that has file uploads, it'll feed into this tab and you'll see all the data there. Lead info this is all the data that could be collected from the form or the meeting scheduler. Any of your answers to questions that weren't kind of like standard CRM fields will show up down below. And all this, you can edit, you can change it. If you get more information or somebody had a typo in their email, you can correct it right in here. And this is all really important if it's like a new contact that you've never worked with before. If you're working on an opportunity for an existing client who you have worked with before, you might not have anything in the lead info because you already have their contact records. So if you've added an opportunity for an existing client, like, don't worry that this is blank, because this is all for somebody you have never worked with before, and it'll eventually get copied into a client. But if it's an existing client, then this could be blank, and because it's not a new lead. So I think that's where some people get hung up, because they're like, oh, I got to go copy everything if I'm doing it for an existing client, but you don't. You can just leave it all blank. Activity. This is where you're going to see all of the stuff in the product that you've associated with this opportunity. And so that's anytime you ask for more information, like maybe you have a discovery form that you send out, maybe you're sending out new meetings, you send out an agreement, contract, your first invoice, you get projects automatically created, you're emailing with this person, all of it will flow into this screen, and you'll be able to see all of the activity that's occurred while you've been working on this opportunity. And one of the important things that we have documented, but a lot of people still have questions, say you have an ongoing conversation with this lead and you need to book your next meeting. If you select the meeting scheduler from in here and you click copy whatever meeting you want, this will give you a special link to that meeting scheduler that when the meeting gets booked, it'll automatically know to associate that booked meeting with this opportunity, and it won't create a new opportunity. Even if you have your meeting scheduler set up that way, it won't duplicate data, it won't get orphaned just as a standalone meeting. It'll make sure that it gets connected here and everything flows together. So this ad is really helpful because it'll automatically link stuff for you. Same with agreements. You'll see throughout the platform. Let's see if I have one here. There's these little pipeline icons everywhere. So pretty much everywhere in the platform, you'll see a little pipeline icon at the top. So meetings, forms, agreements, invoices, and this allows you to link anything back to an opportunity so that you can just say, yeah, this was part of this thing I was working on. And it doesn't really change too much other than it lets you see all of the activity around that opportunity. So if it's important for you to get a sense, to go back and historically look at your opportunity that maybe you closed last year and see everything that went into it, it's good to make sure everything's linked up. So like projects, and when it's linked, you'll see it's got a little like one with whatever color you've selected. And you can unlink it if, it's not actually related to it. But yeah, that's how you get stuff to show up in here if you didn't add it through the add button right here. Let's see, what else? I don't know, Michelle, what else am I missing here? What kind of, or Austin maybe, what kind of questions do we get a lot of times on pipeline?
Did you show the default to-dos already?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's in settings. I forgot to show that. So back in sales pipeline settings, there's a default to do. And so these are really helpful if you do the same things for every opportunity. So maybe you gotta, you want to do a follow-up call at 2 days, or maybe you need to send a discovery form a day after your meeting. You can add these default to-dos. These dates are relative to when the opportunity moves into a particular stage. And so when you set it up, so maybe you, so a week after I mark an opportunity as closed won, I want to remind myself to send a feedback request. And you could do this with workflow automations, but if you want to, do to-dos, then, and have them show up in your focus dashboard, you can set these all up for yourself to do. And then you won't have to go and create the to-do list as you're moving it through. You can just say, all right, that's every time I move something to closed won. So now we can, so I just marked it as closed won today, and it automatically puts send feedback requests, which will be due October 17th. And then that'll show up right there for due next week, send feedback request. So that's how those default to-dos work. And if you do the same stuff over and over again, super helpful to not have to manually do that every time.
Yeah, I love those. I use them all the time.
Yeah. Sorry if you already covered this. Can you explain the difference between a opportunity and when someone becomes a prospect versus a client, and what those flags are for?
Sure. So clients and prospects are really the same thing. So it's just a little flag so you can filter this list. Maybe you want to add a bunch of people to your CRM that you're not actively working with. You can do that and just flag them as prospects. It's literally just a little toggle here. But at the end of the day, a client and a prospect are the same thing to Moxie. You can just filter on them. And so, like, I guess a lot of people maybe coming from other CRMs think of like an opportunity as a client, but really an opportunity is a more like a project than a client. So the opportunity is your opportunity to win new business, to make money, working with a client to do something for them. And so your opportunity eventually gets associated with a client. So you can see this one got far enough along that it created, either I associated with an existing client or it auto created. This one is still just an opportunity that I'm working on. And so we've got this opportunity. I can say, all right, like at this point, I'm pretty comfortable that we're going to work together, or I need to send them an invoice or a contract. At that point, you can create a new client or prospect from all the data you've gathered in the opportunity. And so you'll see it'll copy all that over. And then once you hit create here, it'll associate that opportunity and all the activity with that client record. So before you can send, there's really two stopping points where you have to transition and have a connected client. So if you want to send an agreement or an invoice, I guess there's three: agreement, invoice, or project. All of those require the opportunity to be connected with a client. And so you can either create it right from here, or what most people do is, and this is kind of where we'll get into some of the workflow automations. What most people do is, they'll have so we're going to send right when we get into the proposal stage. That's the first time where we know that we need a client or client record. And so when we drop an opportunity into the proposal stage, we can automate that so we don't have to go and do that manual click. So now that I have that proposal stage hooked up, I've got this client. We'll move them back to inquiries for now. I just spoke to this client. Everything sounds good. I'm going to send them their proposal. So I move them to the proposal stage, hit save, and that workflow automation, you can see it just clicked it in, just went and auto created a client record for me, so that now I can continue going deeper into the Moxie product suite, sending invoices, proposals, creating projects.
Yeah, Courtney said, kind of summarizing and confirming, once they go from inquiry to onboarding, we change the same opportunity, not create a new opportunity.
Correct. You should, unless it's like a whole different project, you really should just be sticking with one opportunity through the entire pipeline. And that client may come back, maybe you do a website for them for one of their brands. They come back 6 months later and they want a new website for a different brand. That would be a whole new opportunity. But moving through the pipeline, you should always have one opportunity that kind of wraps up the whole project.
So feel free to keep dropping questions that you have in the chat. I do want to make sure we get to this question too, which was from Facebook. I get confused with pipeline. Sorry, all my things are in the way. Okay, I get the concept of a prospect, opportunity, and client. I don't get why I have to keep putting extra data in, as in the prospect moves along the pipeline. So they want to generate an invoice for a client. And has some missing data. So maybe, I think probably just generating an invoice for the client from the pipeline will be helpful.
Yeah. And so I guess I read that question and I wasn't 100% sure if they actually should be using pipeline in that scenario. But at the end of the day, I kind of touched on this quickly, but when you create a new opportunity from a client, there's no requirement that you need to go fill out this info. This is like new info that'll get copied into a client or prospect. You can stop here. Like that's enough. Just having it associated with the client will give you access to their contacts. And so a lot of places where people struggle is when you get back into the workflow automations. So maybe you want to, you want to automate sending an agreement. And so here we've got our opportunity email, and maybe you want to use the same workflow automation, whether it's for an existing client or a new client. You can put 2 tokens in. So opportunity email is going to point back to that lead info email address. Contacts will point back to the client contacts. And you can put both of these in and it'll pick whichever one has data. So you don't have to worry that, opportunity email might be blank, because if it's blank, it'll just ignore it and it'll send the agreement to your default contacts on the client record. So I think, just knowing that you can use different tokens in the same field, and that's kind of the intention, is like, if you want this to work for new, maybe people who you don't have a contact record for yet, and you also want it to work for existing clients without putting in all that lead info, you can just choose both tokens. And there's no requirement that you need to go copy all of that data into here, because you don't need it.
What other questions can we answer for you on sales pipeline? Or if you have questions on workflow automations, we can definitely dive into that as well. Something that came up on a demo I was doing, maybe you can talk about quickly, if no one else has a question. What's the use case for going from an opportunity to a prospect versus going from an opportunity to a client?
It's totally personal preference. Like I said, the only real thing that does is it lets you filter this list. Right?
But you can't send an invoice or a contract to just a prospect. They have to be an actual client.
Sure, you can.
Okay.
You could like, the system won't stop you. So one of the things that happens is if the prospect flag is set and you send an agreement and they sign the agreement, we will automatically convert that prospect flag to client flag, because now they signed a contract. But like, I could go in here and I could send an invoice. I could do anything to this. But the only automation that we kind of do behind the scenes is we assume that if you got a signed contract and you had the prospect flag set, that you would like to now have them be a real client, because now you have a contract. But other than that, you can do anything you can do with a client with a prospect.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just like, I think, like, the way I think about it is sometimes you want to look at the people that you're actually working with. And sometimes you want to look at, we have a lot of people who came from other CRMs and maybe have like 400 people they used to work with over the last decade, and they want them in here, but don't necessarily want to archive them, but also they aren't active clients. So they just import them with the prospect flag.
Nice. We've got about 10 minutes left. So if there are questions, you can drop them in chat, or feel free to pop on and say it with your real voice if you would like. And if there aren't any other questions, then we won't make you stay on here and look at us for the last 10 minutes. Cool. Well, you can always reach us, of course, if you have questions in chat there in the lower right. We're more than happy to answer any questions that you have or help you through things. If you are like gonna go get into sales pipeline later today and realize that you had a question you wish you asked, no worries. You can always ask those in Facebook or in chat, and someone will be there to help you. It's one of the things we value the most, because we know it's frustrating if you are like, I don't know how to do this thing, and then you have to wait forever for someone to actually help you. So we try not to do that to anyone. So we are so glad that you came to office hours this week. We'll keep doing kind of different topics, but feel free to join as often as you like, and hopefully we'll see you here next week.